Hello, Bigfoot enthusiast. Scott here from Squatch America.
And it's me, Hannah, the domestic goddess, inside the paddy wagon. This is outside in the snow.
We're sitting in 20 inches of snow right now. So, ladies and gentlemen, we got a great show for you tonight.
And we have great beverages.
Yep.
Tonight we are bringing you the artesian water of Baker County, Oregon, Berkey filtered and everything, because guess who forgot to make coffee?
I forgot to make coffee. All right. So, quick, let's see. Hey, Squatch and Cowboy from Texas is here.
John's here, Terry's here, Christina's here, and Donna's here. Donna, you're going to love this.
We're going to love this show. Okay.
So play the intro.
We got to play the intro. Here we go. All right, and Hannah's going to introduce our guest.
All right, so tonight you have been waiting with bated breath. There's the camera. Okay, I hate that. You've been waiting with bated breath for Alexander Petikoff from Small Town Monsters, and he is Eastern Orthodox, and he's having Christmas tonight. So, we are so excited. He will be with us next week, but tonight we have one of his colleagues. I can't read. Tonight we have with us Karac St. Laurent, I think I got that right, and he is one of Alex's colleagues. Karac has been researching cryptozoology for close to 2 decades, almost as long as this guy here. And he has an online program. You guys might, in fact, we'll get a link to this and put it up for you. He has an online program called Crash Course Cryptozoology, which I'm sure he'll be telling us more about tonight. And he aims to educate its audience on cryptozoological subjects and open up new discussions in the field. So, a bona fide cryptozoologist.
Awesome.
That doesn't really exist, though.
All right, so here we go. Welcome.
Thanks for having me on.
Hey, thanks for being here and standing in the last minute.
Yeah.
Saving our hides. All right. Because my audience don't like me sitting here talking for an hour.
Neither does your wife. It's true. They know it. Oh, Donna says the audio is yuck.
Right.
Turn down the sound.
Turn down the sound. Okay. I can do that.
Okay.
Buttons for that. It's supposed to be automatic, but it's not. Okay.
All right, test that out. Test, 1, 2, 3. How are we doing now, guys?
That should be better. All right. Yeah, never know. Never know. So.
If our audience, if Donna and Joe could get back to us and tell us how the sound is now, that would be great. No, I don't know what no means. What does no mean?
All right. Anyway, so imagine, well, you can hear me just fine, can't you? Okay.
Oh, yeah, I can hear you good.
Okay, good. And I can hear you just fine, too, so we should be okay. I think I was just overdriving a little bit. I turned it down, so the auto level thing wasn't working so well.
Still sounds bad.
Oh.
We can hear you, but it's muffled. Still the same. Why is it muffled? Is it because of these microphones?
No, it's not.
Oh.
Okay, I hate technology. I just got a new sound system, so that's the problem.
That can be it, yeah.
So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go... How about now, brown cow? Okay, there we go. Is that better, folks? I just switched mics. So...
I could sing the Lamb Chop song while we're waiting for feedback from them.
No, you can't. All right, so hopefully they can hear you just fine, because I can hear you just fine. So, first question, what got you into the land of cryptozoology?
Oh, now it's better, by the way.
Okay.
Well, it's so funny because prior to this, we were talking about, the opportunity some people get to see something when they're out in the field. And even though I think I always kind of had an interest in monster stories, so to speak, what got me into seriously looking into cryptozoology as a scientific field was back in 2012. And I was a kid. I was in 6th grade when this happened. But I had an experience that fits the bill for what you would call a Sasquatch sighting. it was early rather late in the morning. It was maybe around between 9 to maybe 10:30 in the morning. And I used to live in this very small town in New Hampshire called Limeboro. And Limeboro was, less than 1,000 people still live there. So it's a very small place. And most of it is forest. And I recall on that morning, while just walking around my property, seeing this large figure in the forest. And it was maybe between 50 to 100 feet from me. And I think it, at the time, was a rather new experience for me to see something like that. But having interest in monster stories, I looked more and more into things like Bigfoot reports and found that I certainly was not the only person who was talking about this kind of thing. And there were a few other experiences in that area where there were rock throwing incidents and things like that. Mm-hmm. And it seemed the more that I studied what other people were talking about, the more that I found similarities with what I had been experiencing. So I think that was probably the genesis for my interest in really researching cryptozoology. And even though I have, I would say, as any cryptozoologist probably does because it's such a studied subject, this really vested interest in Sasquatch, I tried to really expand my horizons too and talk about and study cases of unrecognized animals all around the world. So I would say that was probably my introduction to the whole subject.
Oh, that's awesome. And so that was quite a few years ago, apparently. So
that was 9 years ago.
9 years ago? Is that right? No.
2012 is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just about
ago.
9 years ago, close to 10 years ago. Yeah.
It's 2022 now.
Yeah, and I'm 20 now. So I had been studying stuff just, very loosely. Like I was kind of like, I liked Bigfoot. I liked Chupacabra and stuff like that. But when that happened, that was sort of when I would say the interest and the sort of fanaticism fell to, oh, wow, something's actually going on here. Or at least it seems like something's going on here. So, yeah. So close to 2 decades now, I've been, wanting to do this. So.
Oh, that's awesome.
If you ever get to Wall, South Dakota, you can have your very own jackalope.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't just drop that on me. You got to tell me that.
It's a big thing in South Dakota, the jackalope.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, good. I think it's their state animal.
Yeah.
South Dakota, really?
Yeah.
Huh. I had no idea. That's so funny.
Yeah. No. Though that's kind of something that I've always been interested in. Like, I was never interested in like well, I was always interested in the Bigfoot stuff, but I was never really into it, like, oh, this could possibly be real. And then it was like, oh, I've seen enough evidence that it probably is. And then I saw one a couple of years ago. But I always get asked when I'm on other podcasts and like radio shows and stuff, well, if you weren't hunting for Bigfoot, what else are you interested in? I'm like, Chupacabra is probably, you mentioned that. That's probably the next one on my list that I can see is very feasible, so.
Yeah, I would agree with
jackalopes?
Mm-hmm. What?
No jackalopes?
No jackalopes.
No jackalopes? That's an interesting
Well,
fact.
there's that killer rabbit in Monty Python.
Yeah.
That's kind of a jackalope.
Yeah.
Now that's a wonderful movie. I love Monty Python the whole way around. You might be interested to know the island of Java, which is near Sumatra in Indonesia, does have a lot of stories of horned wild cats.
Oh yeah.
Which is kind of interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that like a warrior cat?
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know. That's interesting.
I'm widely read in young adult fiction.
Yeah, I used to be way big into warrior cats myself when I was younger. Yeah.
So I find it very interesting because, being an anthropologist and being in this field for a while, I always kept my eyes out. And if you go back and look at this, just like normal animals that they just recently found that's been around, like you got Architeuthis, that was 20 years ago that they discovered that was a real thing, but that was in like pirate logs for years, and stuff like that.
Yeah,
What
pirate
about
logs,
that?
Scandinavian writings, very far
Yeah,
back. Yeah.
yeah, very
And
far
what
back.
about that I want to say a gibbon, but it's not a gibbon. That monkey, that ape
Oh,
species.
in the Congo,
The
the billy ape.
billy ape, that's it.
Mhm.
That was just recently discovered, and that's a 5 foot tall, walking chimpanzee. That's a huge animal,
It is.
and the
Yeah.
natives in that area said it's been there forever, and of course, science said nope, can't be until we got a picture of one, basically.
Mm. Yeah, the natives have also, if I'm not mistaken, at least in the stories about these animals, say that they've seen them make coordinated hunting efforts on lions. So several will get together and take down lions for food.
Mhm.
We haven't observed that ourselves yet, but it's in the native stories about this thing that we didn't know existed until, like you said, around, 10 years ago? Less than that?
Yeah.
So it's part of their cultural and behavioral narrative of the animal.
Yeah.
Mm.
Aha. So that's what we're into. Yeah. So Dora threw one in for you. Here's one. Have you heard of this? The Pukwudgie.
Yes, I just did a documentary on Pukwudgies, actually, not too long ago.
Did you?
I did, yes.
So tell me about the Pukwudgies.
So Pukwudgies is a very strange one. So the term Pukwudgie, as far as we know, originates somewhere in the Midwest in the native tribes of North America, but is used widely by the Wampanoag group. So things like the Algonquin and the original Wampanoag up in New England. And essentially, the translation means little wild man who can vanish. And in native mythology, the Pukwudgie, and this is kind of the same with a lot of other little people type stories, is a small human-like being. It's mischievous. It can be violent. It can be hostile. The Pukwudgie particularly is said to be hostile in native mythology. And the interesting thing is that, when you think of sightings of like small humanoid things, you think of like the orang pendek, way off in Indonesia or something. But in North America, I mean, I came across lots of people who had seen something similar. Well, one guy, Brett Castalea, who is in my documentary, he's a park ranger in Texas, and says that he has seen them on 2 occasions, and that he knows people who have seen them in this one concentrated area. And it's a strange phenomenon. They're often described kind of as, small, kind of hairy, 2 hair-covered primates with very pronounced noses and very large ears. So that kind of what you kind of expect when you think of like a small, mischievous little thing, I guess. Which is funny because the big ears and the ears are also in like Spanish mythology. It's in Icelandic mythology. That image is all around the globe. Even in Indonesia, they have versions of that for things like the Ibu Gogo and things like that, which is another sort of little person-like story. And in our documentary, we came across quite a few interesting things. And I don't do this quite often, but we explored the sort of paranormal end of the reports as well, because there are some sort of... There's a side to it that people associate with what you would call the paranormal, I suppose. And again, I don't really touch that very much, but we certainly came across some interesting stories. One from the town that I grew up in, or rather the town over from it, Wilton, New Hampshire, has a Pukwudgie sighting over at a place called Vale End Cemetery. What was interesting, I think, about looking into Pukwudgies regarding that is when you first get into it, Pukwudgies are treated very much like this is a paranormal phenomenon. This doesn't really fit into cryptozoology. But the more and more that I dug, the more I found reports of things either like Pukwudgies or things that witnesses called Pukwudgies that weren't related to paranormal phenomenon whatsoever, but that people were saying acted just like you would expect a wild primate to act. And what I thought was interesting about that is you always get the opposite, right? You start off with Bigfoot and you research it more and more and you find people who say these weirder things about it. Whereas the opposite with Pukwudgie happens. The deeper you get, the more normal it sounds, which is, I think, really quite fascinating about it. And we found just some interesting stuff throughout the documentary. Everywhere we went, something strange happened. I think the most interesting thing is that we got fingerprints at one point on one of our teammates' cars on one of the doors that hadn't been touched all day. And it was in this strange residue that we had attempted to recreate using our fingerprints, and we couldn't do it. So it was this strange kind of thicker white residue. Unfortunately, we fell out of contact with that person, so we couldn't get swabs. We have photographs, and that's it. So it's not really, it doesn't hold up much in the end. we did get to look at some really interesting photographs from Maine as well. So it was a really wild ride. And the whole Pukwudgie subject, I would say, is a wild ride. And scientifically speaking, very interesting in the sense of starting out with something very foreign and weird and getting, the more you go into it, to something that just sounds much more plausible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's something when I do lectures and stuff that I talk about a lot, being an anthropologist, is a lot of people think, there's this, monkey that turned into a guy. That's not how it worked, that
Right.
picture. But at any given time, there's been 3 to 4 species of humans living on the planet at the same time in the same place.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that Neanderthal and Homo sapiens us lived together, And something, when you talk about Pukwudgies, what hits the back of my head is Homo floresiensis, which is a small, short human. That was actually younger. It's a younger species than our species is.
Maybe
a lot of people don't know that. Maybe it didn't really go extinct. Stuff like that.
Yeah, well, there's talk of that for the orang pendek a bit, and we do cover that in the documentary. And what I also found that isn't talked about in the mainstream media coverage of this, I think, is that we have several other species of smaller people too. Manatagala man is one of them, and red deer cave people. Those two interest me greatly, especially because one of the recreations that we have in a museum of Manatagala man, which was the what is now Japan region, I was able, although we couldn't end up getting an interview with them, but I was able to still talk to them, a witness from Arizona who claimed to have seen what they described as a Pukwudgie or a little person. I recall when we talked with them, we sent them a photo of the recreation of Manatagala man. They said it looked exactly like that.
Wow.
Which I thought was a bit interesting. Yeah.
All right,
Cool.
I'm going to insert myself right here because we are, this show is zipping right along. So we have a couple questions. Karac, do you have a YouTube channel?
Yes, that is the main platform for Crash Course Cryptozoology, actually. It's a YouTube channel called Crash Course Cryptozoology. There's also a sub-channel for when documentaries come out. I mostly do short documentaries. I've done 3 feature-length ones, but we're focusing on short ones for a while just because they're easier to produce.
Yeah.
And and everything else is shorter videos covering subjects like particular pieces of footage, particular photographs, particular people in cryptozoological history, things like that.
All right, and if people go to the Crash Course Cryptozoology, boy, English.
It's a mouthful, yeah.
I know. Say that 5 times fast, and then you're just going to want to drink afterwards, or before. You might do better before, but if people go to that YouTube channel, will they find links to your sub channel?
Yes, they will. They'll find links to the sub-channel. They'll find other recommended channels, like Alexander's channel, for example. They'll find links to the Facebook page for the same group, everything like that. Yes.
Okay, so we're going to throw that up in the chat, and then we will link to it in this description when we do the edited version of this live. I can spell cryptozoology. Yes, I can.
Yes, you can.
All right. So, but it is time for a station identification.
Yeah.
So, hey, we're doing something different tonight, guys. Watch this.
Hey, honey, are you at all worried about the future?
Little bit.
Little bit? Well, I don't blame you. It's a little crazy out there. And if you're worried about the future, I don't blame you either. Millions of Americans right now are quietly, or not so quietly, stocking up on emergency food. Should you? Well, ask yourself this question. Do you currently have enough food on hand to get you through the next month? If not, you should strongly consider getting a 4-week emergency food kit from Patriot Supply. They're the nation's #1 preparedness company, and their mission is your survival. They've served millions of American families, and they'd be honored to serve you too. Their 4-week emergency food kit, which comes with breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks, is a great place to start. Their food gives you a minimum of 2,000 calories per day, And the special packaging keeps it fresh for up to 25 years in the proper storage. You can't go wrong. Click on our affiliate link below to shop and save and get prepared for whatever comes today.
Hey, look, we had a week off. We made a commercial.
That was really well made. You know, it's
Thank you.
funny. I have not seen many cryptid channels that actually make their own little promotions like that. That was really cool. That was awesome.
Oh, boy, thanks.
So a little known fact, well, our audience probably knows it, but before anthropology, his first round of education was in the theater arts and video production. So anyway, yeah. So yeah, we have all the skills. We have a myriad of skills that we throw together and call it interesting.
All right, so the Squatching Cowboy just said he just subbed to your channel. That's awesome.
Oh, well, thank you.
So look at this shirt. It says the Squatching Cowboy on it.
Oh my gosh, look at that.
Off his channel. And he's in Texas, by the way, so point him towards those puckwudgies down there.
Hey, I would love to.
It sounds like a bad underwear condition. Puckwudgie.
Puckwudgie.
Also, I have no boundaries.
Yeah.
I just go there all the time. All right. So tell us then. Let's morph a bit. Tell us about Crash Course Cryptozoology. I have 3 graduate degrees. I'm really not interested in any more education, but this actually interests me, so I might sign up. Tell us about that.
Right. Well, my initial inspiration back in 2017 when I made the channel was I wanted to kind of, and I'm not sure if I've gotten to this, but I hope that I have, at least anywhere near it, a sort of cryptozoology-themed National Geographic or something like that, where it was something that people could go to and learn not just some cool facts about the case that we're talking about, but be able to form their own opinion about a case that's being discussed, not be particularly pointed in direction, just be able to be informed. So an example that I think of a video that does that really well is one video that I made last year talking about these interesting sonar readings from Loch Ness, you know, with these objects under the water that no one could really tell what they were, but they seemed to be moving. And so some people were thinking, oh, is this a sonar image of a Loch Ness monster under the loch? A lot of that video is informing the audience how sonar works. So they can actually look at those images in the future and think, aha, here's what this means. Here's what this could mean. I'm not so sure about this aspect of this photo and things like that. So that's one thing that I like to really do with videos is to make sure that people feel as though they're more informed and ready to talk about that kind of thing after having watched the video. And a lot of it can be kind of, what would I say? Correctional, I guess, sometimes as well, in the sense that I'm not sure how deep you guys are into like cryptozoology social circles. Being on Facebook, you see a lot of this, especially in cryptozoology circles. A lot of people aren't aware of when an idea that goes around is just a rumor or things like that. So like one video I have talking about people who have claimed to have been the guy in the suit in the Patterson-Gimlin film, and talking about, okay, you know, who took a polygraph test? What do polygraph tests actually show us when we're looking at one? The fact that Roger Patterson took one as well, and so we have to weigh that result against other results and things like that.
Yeah.
Polygraphs measure how much the subject believes what they're saying, and that's about it. So.
Right, and that's a problem too, because a lot of what's measured is anxiety response, because you know your heart rate spikes and things like that, and they take baseline reading to see how nervous you are going into the reading, obviously, and you know at the same time, some people are caught off guard by questions, even if they're telling the truth. Some people worry too much about whether or not they're going to be viewed a certain way, so their anxiety will actually raise during the questions anyway. That's why most of the time they're not admissible in court. They're only admissible in court, I think, around like 70%. No, my apologies, I got that wrong. They're only 70% accurate, and that's why they're not admissible in court. They would have to be close to 90%, I think, is what the rule is, and they're not. So they're very interesting.
They don't add to a preponderance of evidence.
No, they don't. Yeah.
Right.
because that is actually her background is in psychology. So
I see.
so.
Part of my background, but anyway, yes. Well, it sounds to me like I'm going to say it. Crash Course Cryptozoology really promotes the development of critical thinking within the discipline.
Yeah, I try my best to.
Thinking, yeah, critical thinking. We're in short supply of that these days. So, and we really resonate with and respect that because we actually pride ourselves on promoting critical thinking within the Bigfoot community. Again, something that sometimes is in short supply, especially in some of those Facebook groups. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, I completely agree. I've learned to kind of, visit a few less pages, I think.
Yes. Yeah, I love how fast people throw stuff away, and then other things that to me seems like completely ridiculous, that's what they hold on to. It's kind of weird out there sometimes, to be honest with you. Coming from a scientific background myself, is looking at the morphology of, like, say, Bigfoot casts. I can pretty quickly tell you if that one's faked or that one's real because of the morphology of the foot. And I know what the morphology of a Bigfoot foot is, because I've seen some real ones in my life, and I've had a chance to sit down with, like, Dr. Jeff and we've discussed it for hours, and I actually discovered one of Grover Krantz's long lost casts that he had.
Really?
Yeah, it was in a cafe in the middle of the mountain somewhere.
We had the only cop. Wait, did we give one to Dr. Jeff?
Yeah, we did. But...
Okay, so Dr. Jeff and we're the only ones that have that particular one.
Yeah, it was a Paul Freeman cast actually that Grover Krantz had made a copy of.
Wow. Paul Freeman's an interesting case, too.
Yeah,
very interesting. Paul Freeman's casts are what got me to make this blog called the Sasquatch Print Project, because I did a video on the handprint cast that he had made, studying the articulation of the thumb in particular, because the thumb actually goes much lower and to the side than a human thumb is supposed to be able to.
Right.
And I have found time and time again that exact same thing in a lot of different Bigfoot handprint casts, which is really interesting. And I don't know why that would be the case, except for the fact that I'm a student of anthropology, so I'm not sure if this is a more common term as I would go into grad school. I'm just finishing undergrad school right now. But there are two types of grips for primate hands, and that's precision and power grips. And we're kind of built for precision grips, if I'm not mistaken, because we can touch our... Yeah,
Fine
right.
motor
We can pinch.
Very fine.
And it looks like that hand where the thumb goes down lower is built for wrapping around large objects, so power grips. And when you think of purported behavior, what is it that a Sasquatch is often reported doing? Throwing large rocks, wrapping its hand around very large tree trunks, breaking large branches, things that would be perfect for that kind of hand to be able to do. In particular, there's a cast by, you can ask Shane Corson about this. The Olympic Project recently got a handprint, I think in the last 2 years, and it was featured in a Small Town Monsters documentary, and it is nearly identical to the Freeman handprint. It's actually quite astonishing.
It's like that print that you...
That I have. Actually, a couple of years ago, I had a gentleman bring me an object that he had had in his possession for years. He had literally, in the Blue Mountains here, saw a Bigfoot grab like a 6-inch tree and twist it off. He thought ahead enough to cut that tree off and bring me
the
stump.
Wow.
And you could literally see the thumbprints and the fingerprints in the bark where it had squeezed it hard enough and left its fingerprints in there, and he had twisted it off. I later that piece of stump is in Cliff Barackman's museum in Portland.
Is it
right now.
really?
Yeah.
It is.
So-
Wow.
And in exchange for that, we got a copy of his Nutella cast. Have you seen the Nutella cast?
I
yeah.
have seen Nutella cast. I've tried using
Yeah.
Nutella multiple times to no avail, but
Mm.
Nutella would attract me though.
yeah.
yeah, that's crazy. I've got to make it out to that museum at some point. That just has so many interesting pieces of evidence in there. And I mean that the hand thing fascinates me. I think because whenever people who aren't into cryptozoology think of Bigfoot, they don't think of finding weird handprints in the woods. They think of finding weird footprints that look easily fakeable in the woods. And the handprint thing is just so, interesting to me, especially in terms of Freeman, because, I mean, all the prints that have yet to be successfully contested that are handprints show the same thumb articulation that Freeman did, and we know that Freeman was potentially, if I'm not mistaken, potentially involved in some footprint hoaxes before he got his footage and got the handprints. So I guess the question becomes, was Freeman an example of somebody who was faking it and then accidentally made it one day?
Yeah, do you know, I talked with Jeff Melvin about that exact thing, and he said, well, it wasn't that Freeman was faking things so much, is that if the footprint wasn't as pristine as he thought it should be, he would take his thumb and press in the toes.
Oh, I see.
And to make
So
it
he
more
helped-
distinct.
He helped the prince along.
Yeah, he helped the prince along.
He
Yeah.
persuaded the evidence, yes.
Yes.
Oh dear. Okay,
So he was known for that.
So quickly, I thought we covered this, but maybe we didn't. So, Karac, we have a question for you. Where are you from exactly?
I'm from New Hampshire. I grew up in Lineborough, New Hampshire, where I had the experience that involved potentially seeing a Sasquatch. And I now live along the coastline, which has actually allowed me to do a lot of really interesting things. I filmed a documentary just recently on mountain lion sightings in this very area, like 10 minutes from where I live, which is really interesting. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that's kind of close to the area, I think, where we found that, where Donna, actually, she's in the chat right now, found that Cripplefoot cast. It was in the Bennington area.
Oh,
the Bennington
yeah.
Triangle.
Bennington, Vermont.
Yes. Right.
Yeah, Donna and Dora both are from New England.
So
Oh, well, look at
We
that.
are honorarily from New England.
Yeah.
but not really.
we
love New England.
Yeah, we spent the last 2 summers in Maine.
It's a beautiful place.
Doing research.
In fact, I was really not happy with this situation, but Alex and his crew up there, you were part of the Maine project up there last summer, right?
I was when they filmed Small Town Monsters.
We
yeah.
were in Millinocket, not days apart from you.
Alex was just telling me that earlier.
I was like,
Yeah.
what? Ah! And
I know.
we did get
And we had found prints too.
prints right there in our campground.
So
That is so. We were up there for like so much time and never got a single thing, which was kind of the point of the documentary at the end, was that, to put all of the theatrics of putting those kind of documentaries sometimes to make it, more viable as a watch aside, most of the time when you go out there, absolutely nothing happens.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And that's the nature of what it is, right? Is that you're studying an anomaly. And the definition of anomaly is this rarely ever happens.
Exactly. Like I said, it took me, once I got into this, I feel myself one of the lucky people that's actually saw one face to face. But it took me 25 years to do that. And I had.
And it was a total accident.
Well, kind of.
Kind of, sort of.
But what I had been doing over the years is I set up a website, started collecting stories, and it over 5 years I had put in pins and maps and dates and times, and I had actually laid out almost a migration pattern in the Blue Mountains where I'm from. Actually, the Bigfoot that I saw was 15 miles south of where Freeman had the Freeman film.
Wow. That close.
Just 20 years later.
Wow.
It was in the same area, basically. So that took me forever, to correlate all that just to have one sighting. I mean, I find footprints probably every 2 or 3 years, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's and there's plenty of videos that discuss this, and I wish they were more talked about, these videos, in terms of things. The rarity of an encounter doesn't really seem to be explained by, oh, well, that just means that they don't exist and that this is an anomaly in terms of psychology, because, and it's interesting, you guys were talking a bit about reported behaviors earlier. For close to a year now, I've been looking into purported Sasquatch behavior, and if you ever, and this is a rare book right now, there's not many in print, but if you ever get the chance, read John Bindernagel's North America's Great Ape, the Sasquatch.
Yeah, I have
Don't
it.
we? Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. That is, he was such a class act as an academic, and he outlines almost perfectly. And the only way that he fell short was that there was more that I think that hadn't maybe even been mainstreamly reported yet in terms of behavior that lines up so well with the African great apes in terms of behavior. And the only thing that I think is missed is the wood knocking, because we actually, since Bindernagel has written that book and unfortunately passed away, we have observed, cataloged, and think we've discerned the reason that chimps actually wood knock. They'll slam rocks against trees and emit long distance vocalizations as they do so, which is highly interesting. But one of the things he talked about was the elusiveness. And he mentioned, you don't just walk into the jungle in the Congo and see 15 chimps in front of you. That doesn't happen. In a place like the Congo, where people are sparse and far in between, it's not like these things are hiding from people. That's their range, that's their habitat. Diane Fossey, when she went to go study gorillas, it took her and her team, I think, upwards of 2 weeks, if not 1 week, to actually see a gorilla, even though they had been seeing sign of them absolutely everywhere. And when they finally saw one, it was because one stepped out in front of them. It had decided, you've been here for a long enough time to where I'm not scared of you. I don't feel like you're a threat to me. We can cohabitate, whatever. And, that right there is that is as far as I'm concerned, wonderful explanation for why they aren't seen more often, if they do exist, which I'm inclined to be convinced by the evidence that it seems like they do, because, it's what we would expect. It's what we would expect.
Yeah, there's something that actually I did a few years ago. Was I went to our local forest management, the U.S. Forest Service. I got a friend in there who's a biologist there, and I just flat out asked him, how many animals are in the woods? And he told me in the Wallowa-Whitman National Forest in Oregon here, he said that, he said, we've got about 10,000 deer in this area. We've got probably 5,000 to 6,000 elk. He goes, we have 500 to 600 bears. We have about 80 to 100 cougars. And I got to thinking about that. I see deer all the time. I see elk occasionally. I see a bear about every other year. I've never seen a cougar in the woods.
Right.
If there's 20 Bigfoots, what is the odds basically of me ever seeing one?
Yeah, what are the odds of seeing something there's only 20 out there? And what are the odds of seeing that 20 if those are highly cognitive animals like most higher primates are? If those are things that are aware when they're being watched and don't like to be watched.
Now, and it's kind of interesting, the one that I actually physically saw, we spent 2 days after the sighting in the same area shooting lasers through trees, measuring, the distances between, where I was standing, where it was standing, where its head height was, all that. And we come to the conclusion that it was about 6 foot tall.
I would love to know more about that story.
Okay. Oh, yeah. And where it was standing, we actually found 15-inch footprints with 9-inch footprints next to them. Yeah, maybe I can get with you and I'll tell you the story. We'll hook you up. I'll give you the story
wonderful.
sometime.
Yeah.
So I came to the conclusion that I think a lot of the sightings that we see are either mothers covering for babies or babies making mistakes.
Babies, adolescents.
Adolescents, teenage boys, they screw up all the time. But, so.
Come on, we are all primates.
Yeah.
There's a level of similarity here.
So that's one of my theories, that a lot of the times when you do see them, it's a mistake, or it's like you said, on purpose, like the gorilla. Finally, you've been in the area long enough, I'll let you see me.
Okay. And with that, we do have a question in the chat, which we will come back to right after this commercial sponsor.
All right, I got to get there. Here we go.
Have you checked out our website? If you haven't, you are missing so much. There are so many things that you can be part of on our website. And Scott's going to tell you about the first one. What's the first thing they can do on our website?
Well, you can support us by just buying our merch.
Yes, see? This is some awesome merch.
Yeah.
Okay. You can buy our merch, but if you aren't planning on spending any money today, we know you are tomorrow, but you can also subscribe to our email newsletter. We send out a newsletter once a week to alert you of the upcoming show and to give you a link to shows you may have missed. And every now and again, we'll throw in some interesting and beneficial information that you can take advantage of, whether that's a product or an event coming up. And speaking of events, we have a brand new thing on our website. What is it?
We have a calendar.
We have a calendar. Oh my gosh. Now it is still in development, so you might not see everything on there, or you might see more things on there in a few days than you saw today, but we do have a calendar. You can click on our calendar and get real-time information about where we're going to be in any given month.
Yeah, so keep an eye on the calendar so you can see where we're going to be at Bigfoot festivals, other festivals.
Links to our live shows.
And we're also going to be doing, our normal town hall meetings when we go places. So if you want to be a part of that, just watch for us coming to a neighborhood near you.
And that is all on squatchamerica.com.
Ooh.
I'm so jealous of that. I need to start making ads. That's so cool.
So part of his video production background, he actually did work for a local, I don't know if we could call them a network. They were like a local TV station that sparked and sputtered out. But he did a lot. We did a lot of commercial. This is back like in VHS days.
Yeah, this was way back in the day.
He did a lot of lot of commercial production for local businesses.
Yeah, and I also worked with a production company a long time ago.
I don't know if you are old.
You're probably
enough,
not old enough to know.
But there used to be a show called Grizzly Adams.
I know this. Yeah.
Yes.
I worked on the production crew on Grizzly
That's
Adams.
so cool.
He also was on the production crew for the Japanese version of Unsolved Mysteries.
Yeah.
Supernatural, yes.
Yeah.
In fact, there is in this town, Baker City, Oregon, where we are now, there is a hotel here that is historically known to be haunted that was featured on that. So if you ever really want to dive in some weird paranormal crap, come on this way.
I might have to.
Yeah. It was the show's called Unbelievable, which is kind of but in Japanese. But it was all in Japanese. It's on Fuji TV if you ever get to Japan.
So anyway, the question that we had before we took our own self-promoting commercial break was, Donna, why do you think people that have had an encounter of some type have more after? Maybe they are more in tune to them. And I just want to say real quickly, of the two of us, I tend to be a little more woo-woo centric. But the way that I interpret woo-woo or supernatural paranormal is like it's science we can't explain yet. And so, something like a quote psychic connection, or talking about, it may be by those encounters, your energy is more aware. That energy field is more aware of other energy fields. I don't know. But what do you say about that? Because, like once Freeman had his encounter, he had quite a few more after that. So what might you say about that?
I would have to know what the circumstances are in most of those cases, I guess. Because I wonder immediately, well, are people who have had an encounter seeing the same animals in the same areas, or are they going elsewhere and still having more encounters? That I would be honestly more hard-pressed to explain, and I wouldn't know the answer for that if those encounters were actually happening. if it was in the same area, I would say that you could maybe argue that is a Dian Fossey-like situation.
Habitation.
Habitation, where these animals see this happen enough and it becomes a more familiar phenomenon. They're more comfortable with seeing a human, and after a while it stops being a threat and more of a part of the routine of that day or of that particular time span. So that could be it as well. And again, though, if it's happening in multiple locations, I'm a bit more hard-pressed to explain that.
I really like how he thinks. Someday when you're in grad school, you're going to do really well in your thesis development.
I am trying to write a paper on it right now. So.
I can really see you jiving on like research methodologies and study design and all that. It's just like
thank you very much.
It's kind of funny. I wrote a couple papers, for my grad school, and one of them was actually on the Bigfoot phenomenon in the Native American culture and pictographs, basically. It was the petroglyphs and petrographs, what I was talking about, and how we have pictures of Bigfoot that go back 2,000 years. You just have to look at them, and say that's.
They're not hard to find either. They're not very hard to find at all.
Yeah, your professor was much more interested in that than he was in the petroglyphs depicting UFO activity. Which
I may have found a couple of those too. That was really interesting.
There's something interesting, whether they're petroglyphs or whether they're even, there's contention around pieces of like European and French art that shows things that we would today interpret as a flying saucer.
Right.
That isn't exactly my forte. I say that, but I have like 3 UFO books that I read like all the time. So like,
he'll like that video we got from Rachel.
Yeah, we actually camped last year for a week.
Just for fun.
A mile from the back gate of Area 51. And I may have caught a UFO on video, but
you have gotta talk to Alexander about a UFO. He and I think Paul Eno filmed in Pennsylvania a couple of years ago. All the footage has been publicized. The photos are, and it is. I have no explanation for what it is. It is maybe the most incredible thing I've ever seen come from somebody who I know personally. Probably is, actually is. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Oh, can't wait till next week.
Yeah.
All right. So Donna responded to your explanation, going back to the topic at hand, being in tune. She says exactly same area and being in tune to their activity. Different areas and encounters would be more woo-woo.
Well, I would also posit for different areas and encounters, and I don't know how far this really goes. This isn't my forte. For sure, I don't have any books on this, I swear. When I think of people, especially where I grew up, a lot of people hunt in those areas because that's what you do mainly for, any of your own personal enterprise is you sell venison or you sell fish or anything like that. And you have to wonder, well, how is it that hunters come across animals so often? Well, it's because they learn to track, and they also learn the conditions that make animals comfortable. And I think perhaps, or I would posit, perhaps there are people who have demeanors that are more approachable to things like a primate that are kind of naturally curious about unusual phenomenon, which is what we would be considered to be, I would say. So perhaps that's one thing to where somebody who goes to these areas by chance happens to be the kind of person that doesn't come off as threatening.
So if I go into the woods armed with a basket of jalapeno poppers, I would not be construed as threatening.
No.
That's a long story.
That's kind of interesting. When I was working in California with the Miwok Indian tribe, and one of the elders was teaching me, we were out in the woods, and he said, quit walking like a person. I'm like, because if you want to see animals, don't walk like a person, walk like a deer. So, he kind of taught me how to walk with a different gait, and that animals can tell from just the sound of your footsteps whether you're a predator or not. So
Or an idiot
Yeah.
in the forest.
yeah.
Or an idiot in the forest. Well, there you
That's
go.
more me.
Perhaps that has something to do with repeated encounters across locations. I am completely doing guesswork on that. That is not a thing I've done research on. Anything like that just comes to mind immediately is what I would say about it.
All right. So well, we are down to 9 minutes.
Oh,
Oh, no.
we gotta do our last
Well,
thing.
before we do the last thing, are there any more walk like an Egyptian? Joe! I can do
There
it.
you go.
Are you ready?
Mhm.
Okay,
Whenever you're
go.
Okay.
Have you ever wondered how Bigfoot research pays for itself? I'll bet it's all those government grants that the POTUS is giving out to Bigfoot researchers, isn't it?
Yeah,
Oh.
that's it.
Yeah. No,
No.
Bigfoot research doesn't pay for itself, but with your help, it can continue to go forward. And here are some ways that you can support Squatch America directly.
Number one, YouTube. You're on our YouTube channel right now. And it helps us, it really does, if you like, subscribe, and comment and share our videos. If you can do all 4 of those things, it takes 2 seconds. You can even go back and watch our videos, put them on the background. Just let them run on your phone in the other room. It doesn't matter. Hit one of the playlists. And that actually helps us a lot. You'd be surprised.
And you don't have to comment just once.
No, you can comment several times.
Yes.
And secondly, you can join our page now. There's a button right below that you can click, and it says join the content, and you will get exclusive content from us that we do when we're traveling.
Another way that you can support us is by going to patreon.com/Squatch America, and you can join either one of our membership tiers, either the Squatch Americans or the Inner Circle. Inner Circle sounds like a government secret society.
It is.
Oh. Anyway, the biggest feature of having a membership on Patreon is that we have monthly live face-to-face Zoom chats with our membership. So
First Friday of every month,
generally speaking,
generally speaking.
sometimes if a holiday interferes, well, we like our holidays too, but those are the biggest things. And also Patreons specifically get a sneak peek of all of the new research that is coming our way. And the final way that you can support us financially is to go to buymeacoffee.com, and you can make a one-time donation, $5, to make sure that we stay in the habit that we have developed over the years of drinking coffee.
Yeah, because squatching late at night, you got to be alert.
You do. So, from YouTube support to Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee, those are the 3 ways that you can use your pocket change to make sure that Bigfoot research keeps moving forward. So,
And we greatly appreciate it and love
do.
every one of you.
and anyone who buys us a coffee, we will drink in your honor.
I think we mentioned that the snark runs deep. I do want to take a minute. Terry, thank you for buying us each a coffee this week.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
anyway. All right. So, any last words? John, thanks you for sharing your experience and knowledge. Let me pop that right up. There we go. Yes, from John. Actually, last week, John Melvin is actually in this area. So funny. John was from this area, but last summer he was in Orrington, Maine, when we were in Millinocket, and then we came back out this way, and he was back here. Anyway, long story short, but he found a trackway in John Day, Oregon, not too long ago, and we covered that on last week's show. So you can catch all of our shows. They're all on our YouTube channel if you ever want to go back and review them, as well as the trackway that Donna found, all those things. And anyway, so yeah.
Yeah, so what we've been trying to do over the years is put together a narrative of the cultural behaviors of Bigfoot. We've basically been doing town hall meetings and getting reports from people, old ones, new ones, doesn't matter. And we've been trying to put a narrative together by what people observe Bigfoot doing, basically.
Does Bigfoot like jalapeno poppers or not?
We don't know, but anyway, one of the things that we have kind of it was surprising to me is we found that the southern hemisphere, down Texas, Florida,
Hemisphere?
or the southern part of the United States, not the hemisphere, that's a whole different place. Anyway, but the southern part of the United States,
They're a little grouchy down there.
Bigfoot seems to be more aggressive than they are in the Northwest.
And I have an idea about that, and it's probably a super simple one, maybe too oversimplified. We know that heat stress is a thing in mammals, and I cannot help but think of a upwards of 8 foot tall thing covered in hair all the time. That's gotta wreak hell absolutely all the time.
And alligators. Alligators will make me pretty
and eating
pissed
to deal
most
with
of the
alligators and
time.
not living in houses. Exactly.
Yeah,
Right.
it's just alligator. If you've been to the Florida swamps, I'd be grumpy.
Yeah,
mean,
well,
even
the
the
falcon
falcon-
monster as well
the-
comes up
yeah.
in thinking about that.
Yeah, that was kind of fun. Actually,
You've
we
been
got
there.
we got to go to Falco. We went to Falco, Arkansas last year, and freak occurrence. We show up at the Monster Mart in Falco, Arkansas. That's the only store in town, and there was a poster on the wall for a Bigfoot festival happening that day, and I'm like,
Wow,
crazy.
Look at that.
So we ran over to where the festival was, and I happened to run into a couple of Bigfooters that I've done conferences with up in Oregon, and I'm like, oh, hi guys, how's it going? And just kind of showed up. But I got to meet Keith Crabtree, which was in one of the Crabtree boys from the original film, and he was actually
He was in the Bigfoot suit.
he was the guy that was in
He
the
was the guy.
Bigfoot. He was the guy that was in the Bigfoot suit
Yeah.
when they made
Legend.
the Legend of Boggy Creek. So.
Right. Wow. What an opportunity.
Yeah, so we spent some time there. We went down to the Sulphur River bottoms and did some squatching. And
You know
what
what?
we found?
Nothing.
Nothing.
And the Sulphur River bottoms reek. It's stinky. Here's a little known fact. We're down to a minute and a half. Can you believe this? Little known fact. Keith Crabtree makes the best beef jerky on the planet.
Well, he's instantly on my list now because
I know. I mean, like killer beef jerky.
that is
So,
so funny.
And Squatching Cowboy says, in Texas, the mosquitoes are bad.
oh yes, and if you had Texas
There you go.
mosquitoes all over you, you would be grouchy too. Yes, true. It's
But
true.
I'll have to say that up in Maine is
No, that's worse than Texas.
they have
I can absolutely confirm that. When we were filming for Small Town Monsters, Alex, Eli Watson, and I remember Alex telling me, I have been to the Pacific Northwest Hoh rainforest, and these are the worst conditions I have ever been in for camping.
Yes.
It was
so
horrible.
here's
mosquitoes and black flies.
Yes.
Here's what we found. Here's what we found. Because this guy, mosquito repellent is just like an invitation to the buffet. I mean, that's
I'm bad.
so here's something. Next time, well, so there's this patchouli based balm called No Bite Me. It's designed for children. No Bite Me, which you can find pretty much anywhere. We found it at Katahdin General, the KG in Millinocket.
No way.
Best store on the planet. We love them. Anyway, No Bite Me mixed with Benadryl cream kept them off 20 minutes at a time. He had to reapply
Wow.
every 20 minutes, but it worked. So
Okay.
anyway,
So you've been to the KG?
I have not, and we were right near the Katahdin area, though. We were right there. And it just seems like every new thing I learned about what you were doing in Maine, I was like, why were we not just like doing that?
but
Yeah, why-
so we've got to go back to Millinocket just to meet up with everyone.
Yeah, we did.
That'd be great.
Rent
That
have
would be
ice
great.
cream. Go to the KG. We tried climbing Mount Katahdin 2 summers
Really?
ago. I made it up past tree line to the rebar rungs, and then I was done.
Yeah, she wasn't
see,
going up the cliff
right.
face. So.
Nope, not going up the face. But I was pretty proud of myself. Anyway, we are at the top of the hour, which
Oh my gosh,
means
we're gonna have you back.
we'll have you back.
I would love to come back on. Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, get the slides up.
Oh my gosh, I gotta do everything. I gotta push all the buttons.
Use
Okay.
the button pusher here. I don't know what that is. Anyway, as always, folks,
I need a stream deck so I can just push buttons.
You do. We'll work on that. So, hey, more coffee bought means we're closer to our stream deck. Where is the slide? There we go. So, just remember, folks, our job is to investigate the unexplained.
Not to explain the uninvestigated.
So, until next week, as always, thank you so much for being here with us tonight, for welcoming our guest, Karac, and for liking and subscribing and doing all the things, for putting up with our silly antics, and for following
and go
us.
subscribe to his channel.
Yes, please go subscribe
you.
to his channel if you haven't. And we will see you next week. So until that time, keep it squatchy and
Go out and find Bigfoot.
bye.
Bye. Click.